9 of 30 ghost stories by various authors. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Ghosts of Red Creek by S.T. To the northward of Mississippi City and its neighbor, Hansborough, there extends a tract of pine forest for miles, with but few habitations scattered through it. Black and Red Creeks, with their numerous branches, drain this region into the Pascagoula River to the eastward, with the swamps of Pascagoula as a refuge, and the luxuriant and unfrequented bottoms of Red and Black Creeks to browse upon. There are few choicer spots for deer. Knowing this fact, a small party of gentlemen on the day before a crisp, cold Christmas started from Hansborough in a large four-wheeled wagon for a 30-mile drive into this wilderness of pine and a week's sport after the deer. The guide was Jim Carruthers, a true woodsman, and the driver a general factotum, a jolly negro named Jack Lyons, than whom no one could make a better hoe cake and cook a venison steak. His laugh could be heard a quarter of a mile, and his good nature was as expansive as the range of the laughter. The usual experiences of a hunting camp were heartily enjoyed during the first days of this life out of doors, but his cream did not rise until about the fifth night, when, from familiar intercourse, Jack Lyons became loquacious, and after the day's 20 or 25-mile walk, would spin yarns in front of the campfire, which brought forgetfulness of fatigue. The night before New Year's was intensely cold. The cold north wind of the afternoon had subsided at sunset, and only a gust now and again touched the musical leaves of the pines, making them vibrant with that mournful score of nature's operas which even maestros have failed to catch. In front of two new and white tents, two sportsmen reclined at length within reach of the warmth of the fire, while opposite them rested at ease the guide and the worthy Jack Lyons. Wearied with the day's chase, four staunch hounds, Ringwood, Rose, Jet, and Boxer, were dreaming of future quarry. The firelight brought out in bright relief the trunks of the tall pines like cathedral columns, and sparkling through the leafy dome overhead the scintillating stars glistened with diamond brightness. A silence which added its influence to the scene rested about the borders of the creek below, and gave more effect to the story of the veteran teamster than perhaps it otherwise would have had. "If de deer run down de creek," said old Jack, smacking his lips over a carefully prepared brewing of the real Campbellton punch, "we's bound to see fun tomorrer, for dey'll take us down thar by de old Gibbet's place. In daylight dere's no place like it. But after nightfall, you bet you wouldn't catch this nigger thah." Old Jack was naturally asked why he didn't care about visiting the Gibbet place that night. Asking to be excused till he filled his pipe, the silence was unbroken till his return. He piled on more pine knots and commenced. "You know, gemmen, dat when de gunboats was in de South, we folks had to travel way back heah on dese roads outen de range of deir big guns. I was 'gaged by Mr. Harrison in haulin' salt from de factory at Mississippi City, and on der beach ober Mobile, and I had been makin' a trip every week or so. Dis back country road was neber thought of by de Federals, and we had good times 'long de way, no shells and no shootin'. De night, gentlemen, I's speakin' of was a Friday, dat yo's all know it's unlucky. Well, you see, I hitched up Betsy and Rose in de lead, and old Fox and Blossom at de pole, and takes de biggest load of salt dat de team eber carried. I starts out and crosses the Biloxi River and Hansborough just as de moon was goin' down. Yes, boss, dese roads weren't no better den than now, and de rain made 'em mighty rough when yer come to de holes. I sat in de seat whistlin', de crows is in de pea patch, and a thinkin' of Sarah Jameson, what was afterwards my wife, when I felt the off forewheel go croosh in a hole up to de hub. I'd made 17 miles out abo Hansborough. I did some cussin', and den went to de fence, about 20 yards off, and took out a rail to prise up the wheel. Den I saw I was at Mr. Gibbet's place. I says to myself, I'll go up to the house and get old Mr. Gibbet to give me a turn. I had gone by thar 2 weeks before and seed the old man. Now, gentlemen, yer listen to me, for what I's tellin' yer is as shore as Jimmy'll blow de horn on de last day. I walked up to de house, and dere I saw a bright light inside. It showed out fro' de windows, and I saw shaders of Miss Gibbet and Mrs. Gibbet on de window curtain. Shore, honey, shore. De front door was shet, and I steps up ter de gallery and knocks wid the butt end of my whip. I didn't knock loud, needer. God bless us all, gemmen, de lights went out like dat, and I hears up a laugh, ha, 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 how that set my knees a shakin'. I opens de door, and dere was no sign of anybody. I struck a match, and all de furniture was moved out, and de old red cuttins that I thought I seed was in rags. De whole family was gone for shore. I didn't know 'zactly what to think about them strange voices, but I started back to the wagon when it lightened, and bress God, there in the front yard was 6 graves jest made. Somethin' wrong here, said I, and I builds a fire by the wagon and digs the wheel out. Just den old Squire Pasture come along the road from Mobile, and he tells me the news. Old man Gibbet cut the throats of his wife and 4 children and shoots hisself in the head out'n jealousy of his wife. They was all buried in the front yard, and the house was deserted 10 days befo'. Gentlemen, when I hear dat, dem miles make de quickest time to Mobile eber seed, and yous can tell me dar's no ghosts, but you don't catch me round dat log house of Gibbet's 'ceptin' sun's an hour high." Jack looked suspiciously over his shoulder into the darkness and crawled into his blanket, muttering, "It scares dis nigger eben now to tell about that night." Sleep soon fell upon the camp, but the impression of old Jack's story survived the night, and the next day he still asserted its truth. End of Story 9.